This video is going to come out in July. And while I wanted to put this out in June when it was Pride Month officially, let's just remember that Pride is year-round, because until all LGBTQ plus rights are guaranteed, Pride continues on. This is a very special list for me as a trans and non-binary individual, not individually. Like I got like my Pride swag on here. This list is dedicated to trans youth and to every legislator out there trying to make our lives that much more difficult. We're coming for you, disrespectfully. And so yeah, I hope you enjoy this list. You know what to do. Hit like, subscribe. Next up is On a Sunbeam by Tillie, Walden. So On a Sunbeam takes place in space and across two time periods, the past and the present. The past is in high school, and then the present is kind of in the equivalent of where you would be in a corporate job. In the present, the characters are contractors hired to take places that have some sort of historical significance, turn them into building and office spaces. In a sense, it's a story about gentrification and erasure, and how do we hold on to things when society is constantly moving in a direction to erase things for the sake of profit and capitalism, making something look aesthetically really pleasing versus retaining its roots, remaining affordable to the communities that have been there for generations past. Beautiful quote that captures this essence is, every now and then we're hired to turn a place full of history into some pretty office space, but it also means we're often the last ones to see a place before it's gone. It grazes ever so slightly in this concept of cultural erasure, but the greater themes of the book are around LGBTQ, family, and friendship. There's a sentiment that one of them shares about becoming an adult. It's like the older you get, the more you forget that you can change things, which is stupid because adults have more money, which means you can afford to buy a sledgehammer and break down the room that you're stuck in. And I think generally this is true. As we grow older, we take less risks and we become complacent to our comfort and our stability. So anytime I have free time, I spend it reading, dancing, consuming fun content where I learn things, making a new recipe. I just want more time to do those things. We often don't pursue passions for the stability of a good paying job with benefits. I really appreciated how the characters stand up for one another. One of their employers says, "I don't need to know that stuff. This is a job. None of that is important." And what their friends respond to is, "You don't get to decide what's important to us. You can choose for yourself, but no one else." Have you ever considered that something so trivial to you could mean so much more to someone else? I think about this often when someone initially tells me and continues to remind me that pronouns are hard for me in my mind, and I'm like, do you know how many anti-trans bills are in place and how hard it is for me physically to just pick which bathroom I should go into based on the environment? And so this book, it makes you wonder, could advocating for things be so easy? And in some cases it is dangerous too, but I always implore people to demand what you deserve, because your life is worth living and you are worthy of living the life that you want. Hey folks, this is a really quick plug, I hope. So I've been using loop earplugs for all of my events that I go to, music festivals, clubs, all those kinds of things, concerts. And if you want to protect your ears, which you do, we do have an affiliate link. I'll leave that right here. That'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, next up is Flip the Script by Lyla. By Lyla Lee. Flip the Script is a really fun read, and part of it is because the main characters are actors in a TV show. Our protagonist is Hana, who is from Florida and of Korean descent. In the last 4 years, she has moved to Seoul in South Korea with her parents to pursue acting, driven by her love, as many people's loves, of K-dramas. So the storyline follows her as she navigates her first lead acting role. We dive deep into how the Korean pop culture industry is highly influenced by public perception, and as each episode of this show goes on, has an overarching story, is actually filmed and produced as it is released. This sounds really really stressful to me. And Hannah, the main character, deals with this firsthand as she has to navigate contractually obligated fake relationship with one of the main actors while she realizes she might be in love and like with somebody else. Hannah herself is bi and comments often on how heteronormative Korean ads and storylines are. She also battles with feeling Korean enough, being from Florida and then being Korean, but then moving to Korea. Her being Korean makes her Korean. Her mispronouncing things still makes her Korean. My not speaking Tagalog as well as like my cousins who have lived their whole lives doesn't make me any less Filipino. But I think what it really takes is a willingness to learn about your culture. And the story that really brings it all together is being unapologetically our queer and trans selves. As always, if you have any recommendations for future books or lists or what have you, leave them in the comments below. Next up is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. This is a full story in the structure of poetry about a young black man in England. He is queer and is figuring out how to express himself. He is queer and figuring out how to express his femininity through drag. I just bit my tongue. And so really brief history on drag. Joe E. Jeffries, a drag historian, says, drag is a theatrical exaggeration of gender. It is an art form that has uplifted and affirmed LGBTQ plus people who perform and enjoy. Some trans folks even figure out their transness through the expression of drag. New York's Harlem neighborhood is thought by many to be the birthplace of drag balls in the 1860s. This is where black, queer, and trans residents would wear dresses and wigs in a cafe in a safe and creative environment. One of the first people to call themselves a queen of drag was William Dorsey Swan, who is a formerly enslaved man who hosted guests, many of whom were also former slaves. And because this is a LGBTQ plus book dedication, I need to give space for the leaders of the Stonewall movement, Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, two trans women of color who dressed in drag but also depended on performances as well as sex work to live in their most authentic selves. And we have pride because LGBTQ plus people still don't have guaranteed rights, especially right now. And to know our history is to honor the people that came before us, because our liberation is intrinsically tied to one another. Reproductive justice is queer justice, is trans justice, is women's justice, is black justice. One cannot exist without the other, and we have to keep continuing to support ourselves and each other. I thought this book was really beautifully done as the main character asks himself several questions regarding his identity. I know trans and gender non-conforming people started our movements, won our freedoms. I'm a man and I want to be a free one. I'm a man and I want to put a dress on. For me, man has merely been a matter of circumstance, not a journey or a discovery. He talks about the changes he is experiencing as he traverses time. I come from who I trust and who I have left. I come from last year and I don't notice how I've changed. I think this is beautiful. It's an ode to the predecessors of the LGBTQ plus movement and the responsibility he has and that we all have to continue this work. I come from a limited vocabulary, but an unrestricted imagination. I come from deep issues and shallow solutions. I hear this often from people who are like the first of anything for their family, the first person to go to college, first person to go to grad school, first person to get this kind of job, first person to be in science and tech and whatever, in the arts, and how existing in the world is always tied to having to prove your worth to others. And I just want to quickly say, you don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You don't have to prove anything to anybody but yourself. As he performs drag, he is advised by people around him, know that you don't necessarily have to give your audience what they want. Know that your audience makes assumptions about you, your gender representation, and the gender you are assigned at birth. Your gender is not what this is about. There's a really bittersweet feeling to this one. We're constantly having to reconcile our performances, that is, how we take up space in the world, for how people will perceive us. But ultimately, don't do it for others, do it for you. I'll leave you all with this one last poem from the book. How to come out as gay. Don't come out unless you want to. Don't come out for anyone else's sake. Come out for yourself. Come out to yourself. The Darkness Outside Us by Eliot Schrefer. I'm not a big sci-fi person. This one got to me. So this is a futuristic space love story. So Ambrose and Kodiak, two spacefarers chosen to save Ambrose's sister, Minerva. These two represent the last two democracies that remain on Earth. We see them grappling with the vastness and loneliness of space. And I really appreciated the emotional intelligence that was highlighted throughout this book. So their operating system, OS, advises them to please avoid the nihilistic tendencies in your personality profile when Ambrose mentions that glass is all that is keeping them from being obliterated into space. Or even Ambrose imploring his feelings. Why am I being sarcastic? Because this hurts and I'm feeling weak, and sarcasm is the refuge for the hurt and the weak. This level of honest character reflection is not often common. OS also mentions why Ambrose was chosen for this mission. You're expertly trained in the procedures of space travel, of course, but you also have a high awareness of your feelings. You've examined your own life more than most people your age have. And there's even some affirmations that feel similar to what a therapist would say. I understand the human need to believe you have agency over your environment. I am sorry if I made you feel exposed or vulnerable. That was never my intention. That's a lot for an operating system to be able to spew out to a human in space. The book just knows where feelings come from. So because this book is also in the future, there is a nostalgia for Earth that is simply humbling. So this is a scene in which there's a violin that one of them had brought on board and they're just holding it. We just go silent and close, passing the wood of a 500-year-old tree back and forth. It grew from the carbon in Earth's air. There's a reminder for the necessity of human compassion rather than division. Intimacy is the only shield against insanity, not knowledge, intimacy. I felt that one in my soul because we're constantly trying to outdo one another as opposed to working together as humans. So if you like the sci-fi genre and want to hear this quite literally organic romance, definitely check this one out. Okay, Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. I'll just say basically that the graphic novels of this story are just as cute as the Netflix show. So cute. In the graphic novel, of course, we get a little more detail, particularly into the relationships of the other characters. The chosen family is so important to LGBTQ plus people, and sometimes their immediate family members are not going to be the ones that understand what they're going through. How showing up for people's hard chapters is not trying to fix their problems. It's literally existing and being like, you can keep crying. I'll be here. Last one on this list, Ash by Malinda Lo. So I've already done a couple videos featuring this book, but basically this book is a lesbian retelling of Cinderella, and it's about the grief that Cinderella faces really not having much left in life to love. So be ready for all the feelings. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're not a queer or trans person, send this video to somebody who is in that community and tell them they're loved, they are important, that their existence is exactly as it should be. Vote against some of these anti-trans bills. And until next time, Mobiti.